Einstein thought that the beginning of the universe, the Big Bang, created all of space and all of time at once, in a big whole something. So every point in the past and every point in the future are just as real as the point of time you feel yourself in right now. Einstein believed that literally. One of his best friends died, and he wrote a letter to this person's wife, talking about how his friend still exists. Time is a landscape. And if you had the right perspective on the universe, you would see all of it laid out in front of you, all past, present, and future as a whole thing. And he said, you know, your husband, my friend, is just over the next hill. He's still there. We can't see him where we are now, but we are on this landscape with him, and he still exists just as much as he ever has. Einstein believed that you right now have been dead for trillions of years, that you haven't been born yet, that everything that's happened to you, if you could get the right perspective on the universe, you could see all at once.
Death is, in some ways, unacceptable. I mean, it's just an astonishing fact of our being here, that we die, but I think worse than that is that if we live long enough, we lose everyone we love in this world. I mean, people die and disappear, and we are left with this stark mystery. There's just the sheer not knowing of what happened to them. And into this void, religion comes rushing with a very consoling story saying, nothing happened to them, they're in a better place, and you're going to meet up with them after you die. You're going to get everything you want after you die. Death is an illusion. There's no question that if you could believe it, that would pay emotional dividends. I mean, there's no other story you can tell somebody who's just lost her daughter to cancer, say, to make her feel good. You know, it is consoling to believe that the daughter was just taken up with Jesus and everyone's going to be reunited in a few short years. There's no replacement for that. There doesn't need to be a replacement for that. I think we have to just witness the cost of that. I mean, there are many obvious costs of that way of thinking. One is we just don't teach people how to grieve. You know, I mean, religion is the kind of the antithesis of teaching your children how to grieve. You tell your child that you know, grandma's in heaven, and there's nothing to be sad about. That's religion. It would be better to equip your child for the reality of this life, which is, you know, death is a fact, and we don't know what happens after death. And I'm not pretending to know that you get a dial tone after death. I don't know what happens after the physical brain dies. I don't know what the relationship between consciousness and the physical world is. I don't think anyone does know. Now, I think there are many reasons to be doubtful of naive conceptions about the soul and about this idea that you could just migrate to a better place after death. But I simply don't know about I don't know what I believe about death. And I don't think it's necessary to know in order to live as sanely and ethically and happily as possible.
There's hardly anything bigger than offering immortality or the afterlife, because so here's the problem. We are all aware that death is real because we see it all around us. 100 billion people have lived before us. They're all gone. Not one of them has come back. Not even Jesus, in my opinion, but that's a different video. And yet you cannot conceive of what it's like to be dead. Because if I asked you, picture yourself dead, what do you see? You know, most people say, well, I see, you know, myself there at the funeral in the coffin, and, you know, my loved ones are, you know, hopefully grieving. And there I am. No, you wouldn't see that. You wouldn't see anything, because to see anything, you have to be conscious. To conceive of anything, you have to be a sentient being. You have to be conscious. And if you're dead, you don't have any of that. You're just, really, death is just nothing. And the whole idea of the afterlife is fairly new. I mean, the ancient Hebrews, their idea of the afterlife was nothing. You're just nothing. You're just gone. That's it. There's no place to go with angels and flowers and whatever. It's just nothing. You know, all that was added on centuries later. And, you know, and probably for socio-political reasons, you know, offer the peasants something nice so that they'll keep building our pyramids or whatever. You know, so, you know, again, we can't conceive of what it's like to be dead, and yet we see it all around us, so this creates something of a paradox that we have to resolve in our minds. Most people resolve it by thinking, well, I'm not actually going to die. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to live forever. Or I'm going to accept Jesus or whatever, and I'm going to heaven. Yeah, okay, yeah, but what if you're wrong? That's, it's not a Pascal's wager where you can say, well, I have nothing to lose and everything to gain, because which religion and their version of the afterlife is the right one? Which one are you going to pick? Well, the Christians, we're the right ones. Yeah, well, there's a billion Muslims who disagree with you. They don't accept Jesus as a savior. They don't think he was even the Messiah or the Son of God. Okay, so now what? And they believe just as strongly as you do. So what if your God is the wrong one? Your version is the wrong theory, and they have the right one. You wasted your whole life investing on this idea, and you turned out to be wrong. Why not jettison the whole idea entirely and appreciate the here and now, because that's all we have, whatever is in the hereafter.
Everybody is going to die. I have never met anyone who's not going to die. I've never met anyone who is of a certain age who's not already dead. It sucks. Now, here's the evidence for why I don't believe in an afterlife. It would be a fine thing if I could have the capabilities athletically that I had when I was, say, 23, with the life experience and intellect that I have right now. That'd be fantastic. And then live forever? I say bring it on. But my beloved grandmother, who was brilliant, didn't have that happen. She faded away, losing her faculties as she went. People my age have a lot of grandparents and parents who are not as sharp, certainly not as athletically capable or physically capable as they were when they were younger. And so watching ourselves die is, to me, overwhelming evidence that there is no life after death. There's certainly it doesn't seem to be any reason to think that when you die, you go back to your optimum age at your optimum athletic ability and your optimum intellectual sharpness. And if it turns out that that's true, that you do die and have all this intellectual sharpness and athletic ability, cool, bring it on. That'll be great, but what would you do differently? What would you do differently if you knew for sure that you were going to be immortal when you died somehow? Would you start committing crimes? Would you jump off a cliff so that you can hurry to your immortality optimal state? I just don't think so. Instead, the finite length of our life is what drives us, is what makes us go. And it's what makes you try to accomplish things, or decide to have kids or not have kids, or decide to live in another country, on another continent, or not, or decide how to invest your money, or what you're going to do with your resources. All this is driven by the limited length of life we have. So, furthermore, if evolution is in fact how the world works, and it absolutely sure seems to be from my point of view, one of the fundamental things about evolution that is so troubling is this whole idea of survival of the fittest. That's really a 19th century usage, a British usage of that expression, fit-est. It doesn't mean that you're able to do the most weightlifting or run the fastest 1,500 meters or something. It means you fit in the best. And the troubling consequence of this is you don't have to be perfect or super person. You just have to be good enough from an evolutionary standpoint. You just have to be good enough to pass your genes on. After that, evolution, if it were an entity, doesn't really care about you, man. You had your kids, your genes are passed on, and you expire. You lose your faculties as you run out of steam, and that's just how it is. Evolution, certain diseases catch up with you, certain autoimmune problems show up, certain viruses and bacteria, parasites get you. Nature doesn't care. You were good enough. And so I encourage you to live your life as best you can every day. And as far as putting my brain in an electronic receptacle for all time, it sounds great. but I will evaluate it on a case-by-case basis. Do you want to be stuck in an Apple product the rest of your life, or do you want to be stuck in a Microsoft product? It's a tough call. I'm sure books will be written. We'll see.
Digital and genetic immortality are within reach. Already in Silicon Valley, there are companies which, for a price, will digitize everything known about you. Your credit card transactions, your emails, Instagrams, everything known about you can be digitized. And we have something called the Connectome Project, which will map the pathways of the entire human brain. All your memories, all your quirks, personalities, everything digitized, and we'll put it on a disk, and for the most part, we'll put it in a library. Today you go to the library and you take a book out about Winston Churchill. In the future, you'll go to the library and talk to Winston Churchill, because all his speeches, his mannerisms, his memories, his letters have been digitized. I would love to talk to Einstein. I would love to talk to him, even if it's a computer program that has digitized everything known about him, his work, his writings, his speeches, everything, and a holographic image so that I can talk to him. And one day, we might be digitized as well. We'll be able to talk to our great-great-great-great-great-grandkids, and they'll be able to talk to their great-great-great-great-great ancestors as well, because we become immortal.